Hi guys! I've been having a hellishly stressful few weeks at my day job, which you could also, and more accurately, call my night and day job. And so I've been wondering what's an easy kind of video that I can do, one that doesn't require too much preparation and brain power. And I thought, why not do the tour of my physical TBR that I mentioned in the Media Book Freakout Tag video? As I mentioned in that video, I have about 85 to 90 unread books on my shelf and between 10 and 20 unread ebooks on my Kindle. Of course, I'm not going to talk about all of those books in one huge video, but instead I'm going to divide that up into bite-sized chunks for you. And I thought, why not start with the nonfiction for a change, because that is something about which I have talked very little on this channel. But in fact, I almost always have at least one nonfiction book on the go. I just read them very slowly because I don't like to rush through them and risk that the information doesn't stick and I forget everything. And because of that, I'm still reading Under the Rock by Benjamin Myers, which I've been reading for 2.5 months now. And I also have started Optimism Over Despair by Noam Chomsky. I hope I'll be able to talk about both of these books in a wrap-up video very soon. But for today, I have a stack of 16 books that I'd like to introduce to you very quickly. The first of these is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales by Oliver Sacks. This is an assortment of case studies, or anecdotes rather, I guess, from the work of the late neurologist Oliver Sacks. Weird cases of patients with severe memory loss who don't even recognize their own wives, or cases in which people suddenly developed a new talent, or people with cases of weird body dysmorphia. I'm very interested in this kind of thing. I just hope that this book doesn't dumb the cases down too much in order to be more entertaining. Let's see. The next one is very dear to my heart. Dog Stories by the world's most famous vet, James Herriot, who, if you don't know, this is the author of the memoirs All Creatures Great and Small, the vet who worked in the Yorkshire Dales from the middle of the 20th century onwards. I think he died in 1993 or 1996. And I liked All Creatures Great and Small, however, it got a bit repetitive towards the end because Herriot spent most of the time with his arm up some cow or other's birth canal. And I think dog stories are decidedly of more interest to me than that. I just hope that this won't be too heartbreaking. I hope that most of the dogs in this book come out of their treatment alive and well, because I already cry if a dog is just particularly small and cute, so having dogs die left and right in a book like this might actually kill me. Next up we have Cairngorm John by Cairngorm John, aka John Allen. These are his memoirs of 3 decades in Scottish mountain rescue in the Cairngorms in the Eastern Highlands. I've actually gone hill walking and scrambling in the Scottish Highlands before, so Scottish mountain rescue is a topic that I have given some thought to and have informed myself about. And what is going to be particularly interesting about this book is to see and learn how conditions, but also people and clients, if you will, have changed over the course of 3 decades, from the 70s onwards, where there weren't any mobile phones and GPS devices, which nowadays, of course, facilitate the work of the rescue teams, but also make mountains accessible or seemingly accessible to all kinds of people who maybe shouldn't be there, at least not on their own. I'm very interested in hearing what John Allen has to tell about this. And that brings us to the British nature writing shelf, which is extensive. The one that I think has been on my shelf unread the longest is Sea Room by Adam Nicholson. This one's tagline is "The story of one man, 3 islands, and 500,000 puffins." These are the memoirs of Adam Nicholson, who inherited the Shand Isles in the Outer Hebrides from his parents and turned them into a wildlife refuge, or rather made sure that they stayed one. And this is about the geography and wildlife of these islands, but also very much about the atmosphere and also of the cultural significance, I think, of small islands like that in the public conscience. It's high time that I read this. The next one has been making the rounds on BookTube, and that is the beautiful, beautiful naked hardcover that is Waterfalls of Stars by Roseanne Alexander. Also about birds and a small island, in this case the island of Skoma off the coast of South Wales. Roseanne Alexander went there with her new husband, fresh out of college. Her husband was studying birds, and they became a kind of warden for the island and the research station there for 10 years. At first glance, I'd say this is so big and has tiny font, so I wonder if this couldn't have been edited down. So yeah, I'm not sure when I'm actually going to get to this one, but I like the idea of having it on my shelf. But back to the Hebrides. Love of Country by Madeline Bunting. Sorry, is there a Helen Bunting? I feel like there's a Helen Bunting. Anyhow, I don't have much to say about this book, to be honest, because a Hebridean journey was all I needed to know for me to buy this book. And now, once across the Irish Sea to Connemara, Listening to the Wind is the subtitle, and Tim Robinson is the author. This is, as the title might suggest, about the region of Connemara in the west of Ireland, to the northwest of Galway. I have actually read the first 3 or 4 pages of this book, and they were beautiful, but it is quite extensive. It's more than 400 pages long, and this is a bit daunting, to be honest. 400 plus pages about one single region. Still, I'm very much looking forward to reading this and to imagining myself into this beautiful, beautiful region with mountains and lakes, and I hope that I'll one day get the chance to go there and experience it for myself. But back to Great Britain. This is Waterlog by the late Rajah Deacon, who made it his project to swim in every body of water on the island of Great Britain. Sounds like fun. And then I have not one but 2 books by Robert Macfarlane. One is Underland, which I showed you in the mid-year book freaker tag video. Beautiful, beautiful book. And also Landmarks, which I still haven't read. This is the second most recent book by Robert Macfarlane, if you don't count The Lost Words, I guess, which is a kind of poetry, dictionary, picture book collaboration thing, which is a whole different category from this one. I think this is his most widely read and well-liked book so far, but to be honest, it has always been one that has interested me least. So I guess I'll read Underland before I'll read Landmarks. Next we have Sightlines by Kathleen Jamie. I found this for £2 in a used bookshop, and to be honest, if I hadn't, it wouldn't be on this stack, because I was thoroughly underwhelmed by Kathleen Jamie's second book of this kind, Findings. which is, I don't even want to call it nature writing. It is more assorted thoughts and musings on nature, which I know is what nature writing is, but findings, and I think Sightlines will be the same. Findings was much more a collection of random thoughts than I'm used to with nature writing. I guess it shows that Kathleen Jamie comes from the poetry side of literature. Funny thing is that Kathleen Jamie once made fun of Robert Macfarlane and his brand of nature writing, and I cannot help but wonder if this doesn't come from a somewhat justified feeling of inadequacy. Sorry, Kathleen. And I'm afraid we are still not done with the British nature writing. Next one is The Moor by William Atkins, subtitled A Journey into the English Wilderness. And I think this is to a large extent about the treatment of this preternatural, spooky, and bleak landscape in folklore and also in pop culture, which is my favorite kind of nature writing. But the next one finally takes us away from the British Isles, at least partially, and that is a very exciting one, Arctic Dreams by Barry Lopez. I don't really know what to expect from this one. It says it is a study of the far north, and it seems to be comprehensive. I just love reading about cold and bleak places like the Arctic Circle, and Robert Macfarlane has actually named this as a major influence to his own writing, so after that it was a given. Going even further away from Britain, The Great Wall, China Against the World, 1000 BC to AD 2000 by Julia Lovell. I guess this is pretty self-explanatory. I am ashamed to say that the history of China is largely a blank spot on my historical map, and this needs to be remedied quickly. And finally, my corner of shame, Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. This was all the rage 4 years ago. I bought this as soon as the German translation came out because there's no way that I'm going to read through several hundred pages of economics in French. I have actually read the first 50 or so pages. I read them ages ago, and I was pleasantly surprised by how immensely readable they were. But then life happened, and I put the book down and somehow never picked it up again. Yeah. I still very much want to read this though. And finally, This Changes Everything by Naomi Klein, Capitalism versus the Climate. This also came out years ago, and I also bought this as soon as it came out and then somehow never read it. And after a while, I felt like the window might have closed, the time window, and things had changed again so much for the worse. But I have recently put it back on my to read soon list. And I think what I'm going to do is, instead of reading it cover to cover, I'm going to read selected chapters that I think will provide valuable back knowledge and historical knowledge. And yeah, because I very much want to read something by Naomi Klein. I have listened to interviews and podcasts and read interviews with her, but I've never actually read any of her books. So I'm very, very interested still in that one. And that's it. That's my physical nonfiction TBR. As always, if you have read any of these books, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. But I'd also like to ask, would anybody maybe like to buddy read any of these books that I have mentioned? I'd love to do a buddy read of a nonfiction book, and I'd be free to do so from October onwards. So if you'd like that, please don't hesitate to drop me a message, and I'll see the rest of you very soon with another comparatively tiny TBR list. Until then, take care. Bye, gentle reader.